Painless knee arthritis. What's that all about? I was having a chat with a runner last week who had been unable to run because of knee pain for the last 6 months. It had come on during his last marathon. This guy was a really keen marathoner and very good for his age, usually finishing on the podium for his age group, even if he didn't win his age group, which he often did. So he had done a bunch of marathons, he really loved it, and he was really good at it. But he'd been unable to do any marathons and unable to run for the last 6 months because of this knee pain. So at the time when it had come on, he'd gone to see a specialist, and the specialist had referred him for an x-ray, and the x-ray had come back, the guy handed over to me, as showing moderate arthritis. And this had the runner very bummed out, and they really felt like they wouldn't be able to go back to marathon running, and had booked the call with me just to see if it might be possible to even get back to some form of running at all. Now, interestingly enough, this particular runner was a retired doctor, a family physician, and I said to him, because I knew that he would understand the kind of medical landscape a little bit. I said, last year, how much were you running? And he said, well, I was training for marathons. I was running about 80 to 100 kilometers a week. And I said, well, if we'd have taken, and I said, did your knee hurt? And he said, no, it didn't hurt at all. I said, well, if we'd have taken the x-ray then, what do you think it would have showed? And he said, well, it probably would have showed the same thing. It probably would have shown arthritis because it doesn't come on suddenly. It comes on very slowly over a period of time. So it's probably been coming on for years. And I said, so you were running 80 to 100 kilometers per week on an arthritic knee at that point, and you said it didn't hurt at all. And he said, yeah. And he said, well, is there any reason to think that you might not be able to, in the future, run 80 to 100 kilometers a week on that same knee without it hurting at all? And then he started to smile and he started to perk up a little bit after that. And he didn't seem quite so bummed out because I think he realized that the pain and the arthritis aren't the exact same thing. And this reminded me of a great study that I read a little while back that was published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine by Kulvner et al., Kulvner and his colleagues, in 2019. And what they did was a meta-analysis looking at MRI scan findings for people with no knee pain. So these are people who have no knee pain whatsoever. When you take an MRI of their knee, what does it show? And for the meta-analysis, they went back into the archives and dug out 63 studies that had looked at and taken MRIs of people who didn't have knee pain. And when they fed all that data into the meta-analysis, they had just under 5,000 people with no knee pain who'd had an MRI that they could analyze. And what they found was that 10% of the people in there had arthritis in their knee if they were under 40 years old. Remember, these are people with no knee pain whatsoever. And the really interesting bit is, for those who were over 40, over 25% of them had signs of arthritis in their knee on their MRI, but they had no knee pain whatsoever. So just to sort of pin that down, people without knee pain, 1/4 of them have arthritis in their knee. Meaning that as you walk around today and interact with other people in the world, if they're over 40 years old and they don't have knee pain, 1/4 of those people, maybe even up to a third, will have arthritis in their knee. I'm 40 years old. I don't have knee pain. I might have arthritis in my knee if you were to take MRIs of either of my knees. Now, many of you guys listening to or watching this may have had an x-ray or an MRI of your knee because you had knee pain. So you went to your doctor, you got an x-ray or an MRI, and then you were told you have arthritis. And perhaps you were giving a grade, like they said it was mild, moderate, or severe. Maybe they gave you a number grade like 1 through 4 or something like that. Or maybe they use some very unhelpful terms like bone on bone or something like that to describe wear and tear. They use some words to describe what they were seeing. But often not. Most of the time when I talk to runners, either they weren't told the degree to which they have arthritis because it is a spectrum. It is not a matter of black or white, you have it or you don't. It's a spectrum. And often runners are just told you have arthritis. So they're not told how bad it is or to what degree they have arthritis. And what they're never told, in my experience, is that people with no knee pain, 1/4 of them have arthritis. So this brings up an interesting little conundrum, because just because you have knee pain, if you get an x-ray or an MRI and you have arthritis, it doesn't necessarily mean that arthritis is actually causing your knee pain. It might be, but it might not be. And also, you might have arthritis in the other knee that doesn't hurt at all, and it might not hurt, and it might never hurt. And you might have arthritis in your knee that does hurt now and may not hurt in the future. And this, while it can be a little confusing, and it is a little confusing, and it's confusing for everyone, it does offer some hope, because the big takeaway here is that what is shown on the scan is not destiny. It does not predict very well the problems that you will have in the future, whether you'll be able to run, how much pain you'll have, or the degree to which you'll be able to run. Now, that being said, I don't want to paint too rosy a picture, because there is research as well that shows that there is a relationship between pain and disability and arthritis on knee x-rays and MRIs, meaning that the more severe the signs of arthritic change are on an MRI or an x-ray, the more likely that person will have pain, and the more changes there are, the more likely the pain and disability will be bad. So there is some relationship there, but there are also quite a number of cases, 1/4 of these people, who don't have any pain at all and still have signs of arthritic change. So the relationship between arthritic change or damage, wear and tear, whatever you want to call it, and pain is not linear, and it's not entirely clear, and it's definitely not destiny. So, I often talk about the fact that just because you have pain doesn't mean that you're causing damage. I often say pain doesn't equal damage. And just because you have, say, pain in your Achilles when you're running, that does not mean that you're damaging your Achilles. And we have tools for that. We want to make sure that we're following the pain traffic lights that I talk about a lot, and we're using those to help us find the adaptive zone, where we're training in a way that is making that tissue, that tendon or joint or whatever it is, less sensitive, less angry, more resilient, more tough. But on the flip side of that, damage doesn't equal pain. So arthritis doesn't equal pain. Signs of wear and tear don't equal pain. Just because you have damage to a structure, whether that is a joint or a tendon or cartilage or bone, it does not necessarily mean that you will have pain. You might, and it certainly does increase the likelihood that you will, but it does not mean that you will. It doesn't mean that you always will if you do. So just because you have arthritis doesn't mean that you will have pain. And if you have arthritis and you have pain, it doesn't necessarily mean that the pain is coming from the arthritis. It might be coming from something else. And if you do have arthritis and you do have pain, it does not mean that that pain can't go away, or even go away entirely in the future. There is very good evidence that strength training for people with arthritis does reduce their knee pain. It certainly does not change their X-ray and MRI results. The arthritis is still there, but the pain gets better, and that has been proven in lots and lots of research. We also know that running does not make arthritis worse. These are things to make you very hopeful. If you have not tried a very comprehensive rehabilitation program, which is the kind of thing that we do, where we look at biomechanics, strengthening the structures, building the muscles, doing it over a period of usually months, not weeks, and progressively getting stronger, more resilient, less sensitive. If you've not done that kind of thing and you have knee pain and you have arthritis, there is still hope. It can still improve, even if you have changes on your X-ray or MRI that are quite discouraging. So what I hope to offer with this little anecdote today is some hope. If you have arthritis, the degree of pain and disability that you have from that, the degree to which it's affecting your running, is not destiny. It can improve. It may be able to improve to the degree that it does not bother you at all in the future, and you may even be able to run more than you ever did with less pain, or maybe even no pain. We just don't know. What we do know is that if you follow the 3 critical components, optimizing your biomechanics, building the muscles, strengthening the structures, that's going to give you the best chance possible of reducing that pain and increasing your function, your ability to tolerate running. So that's what you should focus on, rather than getting too pessimistic and down on the fact that there are signs on the X-ray or MRI that are not as encouraging. And if you have knee pain yourself, and maybe it's not that bad, or maybe it's really bad, and maybe you've been told that you have arthritis and you're feeling a little hopeless about it, and you feel like you've tried everything, I can promise that you have not tried what we do, because what we do is pretty unique. There are not many people out there who are taking the kind of comprehensive approach that we take to addressing knee pain in runners. So I would love to talk to you and see if perhaps there's been some gaps in the approach that you've taken and the things that you've tried, and see if we might be able to fill those gaps and help you get back to running, because there's nothing that makes me happier than when we are able to do that for a runner who has given up, to give them the hope again that they can run without knee pain. So just click the link in the description if you would like to have a chat free of charge, and we'll see what's going on and if we might be able to help you.